DOWZARD.
What is last night before Doctor Who, and I've told you this off the air already, the first teaser trailer for the return of Gladiators was on TV.
Which is going to be on the BBC, right?
Yes. Was originally all ITV? No, wait, Sky had it in the first revival.
The first revival, like the 2008 or whatever it was, when they revived it after the first run, which is the spin-off from American Gladiators. Yeah, that was all, like the first run was all ITV, 100%. I think. I can question I don't know what the production company was. It was all shown on ITV at least, but it could be one of those situations where it's like an Endemol or one of those sorts of things.
I was going to say Endemol jumps to mind.
Yeah,
because they're the kind of company that, like, they got big on formats and then licensed formats. But if it starts in the US, I suddenly don't know. I suddenly think there's probably a bigger episode than this about Gladiators.
You're probably right. Yeah,
but it ran.
Maybe we'll do that when it's launched and
when it's launched.
Some of the new stuff. But the interesting thing is you told me that they used the old music, right? And it's not like a remake of the old music; it's the actual old music. So they must have the rights to it, right?
Is it a remake?
Oh,
that's a very good question. Yeah. I was in the kitchen and I was waiting for Doctor Who to start, and I heard dun 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 dun, and I was like, that ain't Doctor Who, but I know it. And I went back in and I saw the big old school rectangular G.
Yeah.
And it came onto the screen, and it was Gladiators coming soon. No, it was Gladiators in BBC overlay font. It wasn't the big stretched,
Yeah, WCW Gladiators.
Yeah. Do you say WCW?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the kind of big with the coming out of it.
Yeah.
It just said Gladiators and it said coming soon, BBC One font. So it's just the big G. So they're going full nostalgia, effectively. Old music cues, which you're right, they must own. But if they own the whole shebang, they would own the music rights, right? They probably own all of that shit in perpetuity.
Yeah, that's true. It's all going to come as one thing. So yeah, if they own the rights to the show and they can produce the show and call it Gladiators, and it's not called, like, I don't know, Gladi Warriors or something like that, and it's just complete pastiche. then yeah, of course they're gonna own the rights to the music. I kind of want to go find that trailer now and see if it is the actual original music, because that's like, I went down a rabbit hole maybe 2 years ago now, where I heard that for like the first time in forever, and I found the music video.
I remember. Did we do it while we were? I mean, it wasn't an episode because we haven't done an episode in a long time. But was it? Were we chatting on Skype and we found it together? Because I remember watching it with possibly. All the terrible blue screen and the cut-in shots from the title sequence and stuff.
Yeah, and it's like the one guy who clearly did it all himself in a studio. He kind of feels like the kind of guy that you would have seen in a pub in about 1991 playing like Panther songs on his own with a tape in the background.
Wasn't he like all denim?
Long hair, all denim, guitar, and yeah, just kind of like a wannabe rock star who's got some musical chops but no charisma. Sorry if you're listening.
And knew someone involved in the thing. I mean, this guy now effectively is a legend of our childhood, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah.
I'm sure even he admits his look probably is quite dated and probably still has that look.
I don't doubt it, yeah. Probably still playing the same Panther songs in that pub.
I wonder if that's what he returned to. Again, we'll if we do a bigger Gladiator episode, we'll... Gladiators episode, not Gladiator. Sorry, Ridley Scott. Although he's making Gladiator 2, right? Isn't Gladiator 2 coming? I think after 20 odd years, we're getting Gladiator 2, the movie, as well. Well, he did. Spoilers for Gladiator.
Oh. Yeah.
So I guess not, but it depends what story they're telling. God knows what the story would even be.
Good question,
also, he seems very content to just chew scenery in films now.
Rusty?
Yeah, Rusty.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we're calling him now.
Well, I mean, in what was it? Was it Guardians of the Galaxy or was it the Thor movie?
He was in Thor. He was kebab shop Zeus, wasn't he?
Zeus, yeah, kebab shop. This is a great description.
Hello, baby peeps. He was basically doing the Harry Enfield.
Stavros, yeah. He was, you're right, yeah. But anyway, back to Gladiators.
Sorry, yes.
I'm kind of interested to see what they do. I went down a bit of a Wikipedia rabbit hole, just kind of looking and seeing what they're doing. And there's a little bit of information on there right now, not a ton. I think there's 11 episodes. They're doing like some heats, quarterfinals and semifinals, and then a final.
Of course, yeah, it's a competition. I forget that. It's kind of a game show, isn't it? Yeah, rather than just being like week to week.
And
11 episodes, so that's three odd months of TV.
Yeah.
Why 11 rather than 12?
Good question.
It seems weird, unless they wouldn't then do a live final or something and do it later, would they?
No, having been to one of those recordings when I was a kid, no, they're not going to do it live.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
One of my enduring memories of being at that was how long it took in between games. Because as a kid, you kind of imagine that it's going to be exactly like it is on TV when you're there, and you get there and there's like a lame warm up guy, and you get to meet and see all of the cheerleaders who were really peripheral in the original show, if you remember rightly. Like I feel like in the first couple of series, they would go and like show them, and like Wolf would walk in between them or push one of them over or something. But then afterwards, they were
just Wolf just pushing women over.
I'm pretty sure he did that. G-Force, if I remember rightly, the Gladiator squad. The
like Battle of the Planets. Okay,
the cheerleader squad was called. And G-Force is in Gladiator Force, I guess.
Yeah.
So like all of that happens in the pre-show, and then the first event happens, and they do like the intros and that sort of stuff, and they're completely set up for the first, whatever the first event is. There's obviously a bit of a gap in between, so they can walk over and and John Anderson can stand there with his whistle and shit. So the gap, I seem to remember, being between like the intros and the first event wasn't that long, but it was still not instantaneous. But then because of the apparatus requirements of those games, the gaps in between, there's like an army of crew, like the back wall would open up, an army of crew would come in, and they would take all the other shit out and rearrange the big red crash mats and put up whatever it was, but it took forever. So they couldn't do, I don't think they could make that work, considering the fact that it seems like the recording setup is going to be very, very similar. I actually looked yesterday and I was like, we're talking about how big the arena was. Because the old one was obviously in the NIA in Birmingham, which is where I'm from, so I always had that connection to it, because it's like, it's just in town. This is going to be the Sheffield Arena. They are both called like the whatever the sponsorship of it is, the Utilita Arena Sheffield. The NIA in Birmingham is now the Utilita Arena Birmingham. So they've got the same sponsorship, yeah, which kind of made me laugh. And they're both built around the same time, like 1991. So it may well end up looking very, very similar.
I also went to a taping of the original one million years ago, and what I remember was like it was kind of a sham, and it was filmed out of order because of one of the games being much bigger. And in my head, it's the ending, but they couldn't have done that, right? Because the rounds are legit; they're not going to wrestle.
Yeah, and there's a difference, because there's the starting time difference, which is based on points, which is all informed by the previous games that were played. So, like, you get like half a second for each point difference between the two competitors. So if it's like a 10 point difference, they would get a 5 second head start. Right. So they have to do all the events first.
So you have to do it. So I wonder what the thing was they put on first that was definitely in a different part of the show when it went out. I remember them like hand waving it away somehow, but I can't remember how they did it. But they did one of the big, like,
Danger Zone,
multiple part, like, runny jumpy things, and then they carted that all away, so they didn't have to bring it out. So it was set up before anyone came into the arena.
Yeah,
stadium.
No, trying to think of the games that were, because like things like the wall were very contained. It was in a corner, it was permanent, it was there. Yeah. They just had to kind of do all the rigging, and that was what took the time. But they didn't have to like set up a bunch of shit. Something like Danger Zone or Atmospheres, one of those things that uses lots of space, they would have to reconfigure the whole arena for. So yeah, I wonder if you're right. Maybe they did the wall first, and then the rest of the arena was all set up as something that was going to be later on in the show, just so they didn't have to, set it all up.
Yeah, and in my head, that's the final thing, but it couldn't have been, because then the whole thing would have come off as like, it's clearly all a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, it's wrestling.
Let's break kayfabe on Gladiators immediately, and it's all just an entertainment.
It's still real to me, damn it!
When we were chatting about it yesterday, because it got me thinking a lot about wrestling and how effectively Gladiators is a promotion or could be a promotion in the same way.
Yeah.
And so I wondered what you would make of that in terms of like you start it from scratch, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are assuming it's in front of a live audience. It's in an arena. It probably is. Like, yes, okay, maybe Series 1, they give the tickets away for free. But then how do you make it work beyond that? Like, people don't, people going into this new arena don't know these characters.
No.
Don't know, what to make of it all. Like, a lot of the kids now probably won't remember the '07 version. They definitely won't remember when did it end? It ran for like 10 years, right? Did it finish in the 90s or early 2000s?
No, it was early 2000s. It was like 93 to 2002 or 4, something like that.
Okay, and then they rest it for like, let's say 5 years, and then they bring it back. So it's been gone for longer now than it was with the reboot originally, in theory.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, so
the reboot only lasted a year or 2
wow,
years.
did they only do one series?
They did two series, but it's 2008 to 2009, so they did 2 series in a year.
Okay, which means they probably filmed it all together, maybe.
One of the interesting things that I did notice from the Wikipedia page for the BBC one, the new one, is that they basically got there's no one from the original bunch back. So, because
that makes sense, right?
It does, but I mean, with the Gladiators, definitely, and obviously, like we were joking last night, you're not going to have Ulrika Johnson and John Fashanu, Awooga, coming in. But like John Anderson, I mean, maybe he's in his 80s now. He's probably pretty old. But yeah, it seems like they've gone very much. They're drawing a lot of people from the world of sports. Like I noticed the name of the guy who's listed as the head referee was like a football referee. I think football or rugby. And there's actually a couple of them. There's a guy and a woman, and they're both like legit sporty people. And Guy Mowbray is going to do the commentary. And I was like, I kind of recognize that name. He's been doing like football since Eurosport in '97, and he's on BBC since '04. So he's like legit football commentator guy, and he's going to be doing the commentary for it.
Oh, interesting.
Because if you remember, like the original, it was John Sachs. He was very radio.
I was just trying to think, who the hell was it? Because it was a name, wasn't it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and
fascinating.
He was a very TV voiceover guy, whereas this seems like they're going much more legit. A lot of again, this is kind of probably a sign of the times. A lot of the original Gladiators, they were like fitness champions or bodybuilders, and now I noticed a lot of the people on the list of the new Gladiators, much more from like the rugby and sports world. Still some like CrossFit and bodybuilding type people, but I feel like there's less of a focus on that world now in the current age. So it kind of makes me wonder whether they're going to pivot away from the pro wrestling side of it and more towards a kind of legitimate sports presentation of it, which I kind of hope they don't, because I'd much prefer that it was over the top and a bit more wrestling, kind of like Battle Dome, if you remember that.
I vaguely remember Battle Dome. What jumped into my mind just now was Ninja Warrior. So if you go or Wipeout, Total Wipeout, whatever it's called, like, do you go somewhere between that, which is probably where it would sit in terms of being like ludicrous, let's watch these people fall down Takeshi's Castle type shit.
True. And
which is total Wipeout, I suppose, to Western audiences, and the kind of Ninja Warrior where it feels very like the size and scale of it is crazy, but it's deadly serious. Like those people who get in there and do it seem very
real athletes.
I'm CrossFit as fuck, and I'm going to do this. You know?
Yeah, that's true. I think you're right. I think if they hit that balance of it with some cartooniness from like a couple of the Gladiators, like they did originally, where they had your Wolf and those sorts of people doing a bit of the pro wrestling stuff, I think they could probably do it pretty well.
Yeah, and I wonder how much you leave to the edit to figure that balance out.
Good point. Because if you watch the original ever at all, like there's a bunch of it on YouTube. I went through a bunch of it just as background a couple of years ago, and you can really see how a heavy edit hand on top of it. Like even those bits that you kind of remember being, Wolf and John Anderson are going at each other. It's clear they did it for like 10 minutes and there's 5 seconds of it. It's crazy how tightly edited that thing is.
That makes it a lot.
Tightly's not even the right word because that makes it sound slick, and it's not slick.
Yeah, I get what you mean though. In terms of like, right, just what you said about the length of time it takes to shoot one of those things, and then how much you cut it down to. But do you remember how many episodes they filmed at once? Did they just do
I thought
one?
It was one, yeah.
So if you have a 3-hour like slot in the arena, and they get 1 hour of TV out of it, that does explain like a lot of like how long it takes to do this shit.
And probably how expensive it ended up being. So I think that's why it got cancelled in the end.
Too expensive to, I suppose, the building and all the games and shit.
Yeah, you think about how much that building cost to rent. Because it's one of the first things in there, because I think the place opened in like 91, and it was in there in 92. So by that point, if the building was more in demand, maybe they were putting up rates on and where do they store all that stuff? Because it's a shit ton of equipment.
And yeah, I remember it being weeknights. It was recorded, right? Because weekends you're probably getting real legit stuff in there. Also, then they're going up against themselves on TV.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I would imagine so. I feel like it was like mid-afternoon was probably on. I think I remember missing an afternoon at school for it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it was the same then. I remember it. I remember the idea of it because that's all I've got, right?
Yeah.
That it was a weekday or a weeknight that we went up there for it, and it was several hours, like a whole evening of something. So
I want to say like mid-afternoon into the evening is probably where I'm thinking. What
that would make sense because you don't want to keep the kidlets out too late.
No.
So let's say it's like a mid-afternoon, and they probably did as well, like put tickets out through schools and stuff.
I bet they did.
Fascinating. But yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, I wonder if you just get the athletic presentation part of it in the way you're going to do that, and then you figure out how to like amp it up or down in the edit.
Yeah.
So and it's same in terms, like you say, the wolf style stuff. The people who want to play characters and have got that in them, you could include that or not include that depending on the presentation you decide to do with it. Especially if you're filming that much shit, because you're probably doing skits between changeovers and stuff on the day.
True.
And then you can choose whether you put those in the edit or not. So there probably is quite a lot of this that is decided, or for a comeback is decided after the fact based on like, you know, a 6-month editing period. Let's say, I mean, it did sound like they were filming in June, so that would make a lot of sense to me. And you decide what you're going to do with it based off various producers' hands,
right? And
what some degree of market testing proves that they would want.
True, yeah. So I don't think they're going to go full on. And this is a terrible reference because I think you only vaguely remember it, but they're not going to go full on Battle Zone with it. It was it was almost a co-production with WCW because they had some crossovers where they really did have characters and storylines running through it, and rivalries and that sort of thing. I can't see him doing that at all, particularly with the contingent of people that they've got who are very heavily sports folks. Like I just don't see that them doing that. But yeah, I wonder if you do have, because when is it Nick Aldis? Was that the guy? Is that the dude who was in Gladiators?
Yeah, made good.
And he's
now in the WWE.
Wrestling, right? Now in the double, right? Is he like SmackDown GM or something?
SmackDown GM, very well done. Yes.
I've been seeing clips of CM Punk doing his tour of shows as a free agent, and I didn't know that HBK was the NXT GM.
He is now. Yeah, he kind of runs on screen, and it is a weird thing to say. He kind of runs it and is the on screen like whatever as well. So he does most storylines and stuff, I believe, as well. So it's bonkers, really. The whole thing's bonkers at the moment. But yeah, Nick Aldis, I'd forgot. He made good. He married Mickie James.
Good for him. Not jealous at all.
She did mention something that was completely jealous.
Oh, jealous?
Yeah, and so really? Now I think I know exactly who she...
I am not jealous!
Oh, no, man. She's not jealous.
Whatever, yeah. Anyway, he made good off that. He clearly won in terms of like who won the Revival of Gladiators.
True, yeah.
Clearly he won it because he actually went on to legit things. Kind of bonkers to think about, actually.
It is, yeah.
I was going to say one other thing.
Oblivion. What a fucking terrible name.
His name was Oblivion?
Oblivion.
Okay. He went from Oblivion to Nick Aldis.
But he kind of occupied the wolf spot on the Sky Revival, where he had a bit of character and he was the bad boy and like clearly, because that's another thing that kind of really is jarring when you watch the original Gladiators is like they almost like sometimes they try to be a character, but then they in a second, kayfabe is broken and they're like all smiley and nice.
Yeah, that's a danger. I wonder if you lean into that with the. I mean, it's difficult, right? Because it is again, it is more like wrestling than you think. In that, if you're bringing in legitimate sports people, like, can they do both?
Mm.
Are they given to doing both? I mean, Wolf clearly decided, I'm going to be a heel. Like, I'm going to do it this way. So and
he went down like the film route afterwards, which makes sense. He was like,
I didn't know that.
Did bit parts. In fact, one of my mom's friends was married to a filmmaker. I did sound. The very first film I ever worked on was when I was 16. I did sound on a short film that he made.
Oh, nice.
And one of the movies that I think he like AD'd on a film or something like that. Wolf was whatever his name was.
I was going to say Bert something. He looks like a bird.
I think he lives in New Zealand now. Runs a gym in New Zealand.
With Noel Edmonds, right? Noel Edmonds bought a town in New Zealand.
Didn't he? I heard about that recently somehow.
What I was going to ask you, though, if it's successful...
Yes.
Do you try and take it on the road? In this modern age, can you then go to... I mean, if Utilita or whatever own multiple arenas, do you try and take it on the road?
Can you imagine carting around all that equipment? Like with wrestling... I mean, I was going to say there's not that much, but there really is, isn't there? If you think about all of that set shit that they and the giant screens that they bring around.
Yeah.
But they're so used to doing it. They've been doing it for 30, 40 years. I don't know whether the BBC would spring for it in terms of the budgets that it would require for the logistics of moving it around. Just moving all that stuff around.
But then are the BBC getting the ticket money?
Good point.
Like, this is where, like, if you look at it, if you think of it along the lines of like a promotion, if it's Endemol or a production company, and BBC are only I've completely lost what word I was looking for, paying out, let's say, for the rights to show it, the ticket money and the potential gains of actually putting it on, does that then become something that you turn into a roadshow? Very good question.
And interesting you mentioned tickets, because there is a controversies section already on the Wikipedia page.
Oh, God, go on.
Apparently, numerous people turned up for the first day of filming, having successfully applied for free tickets. Of course, that's going to be the way it'll be for the first
I assume they'd be giving them away.
Only to be denied entry due to the venue having reached its capacity. Many people arrived hours before the stated start time and were still denied entry, with some having travelled long distances and having paid £5 to park. I mean, come on. While another group had travelled for 4 hours and stayed in a hotel overnight. This resulted in, quote, lots of unhappy people and upset children.
Wow, so people are excited about this to some extent, especially if they're travelling for it.
Which is amazing considering there's really been very little promotion for it already. I mean, that's impressive to get that kind of buzz. But thinking about the original, how the fuck did they fill those arenas in the first series where none of us knew what the hell it was?
Well, that's exactly the problem I foresaw with this one. I know the remake was done in a very small space, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a
studio, I think.
There was one of the things that I felt was very lacking.
Was scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't feel grand anymore.
But, I mean, they must have done some sort of campaign, social media, whatever. Like, hey, it's coming back, everyone. Remember this. Like, here's some bunch of clips from the old shit.
Yeah.
Like,
remember watching this when you're a kid? Now bring your kids.
Bring your kids. So, yeah, but the tickets would have to be free, I would think, especially for the first thing. But you could then turn it into something where you can make money. I mean, God knows. Do you remember how you got tickets? Were they always free?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I obviously, I was too young to really kind of know what the details of that were. All I remember is that the first time we went, it was we didn't obviously getting tickets was quite hard, and it was probably I want to say series 3 or 4, maybe 2, 3 or 4. It was definitely not the first series. Yeah. And the thing I really remember about it was that it was the debut of a contender who ended up being really successful in it, and she came back multiple times. She came back as like a coach, and then I think she was a gladiator for like some of the live events even.
So again, in that similar thing, we could have been at the same episode.
I know. I kind of love thinking about that sort of thing.
But we saw each other across a packed hallway
one day.
Like, who's that guy?
He seems cool. We'll make fun of someone together someday.
Yeah, one day we'll make fun of this together. But yeah, I mean, 90s is back, right? Everything's back all at once. But the idea that they're bringing it back, they're using the old music, nostalgia act. Like, do you think it's got legs? Do you think it's going to work?
I don't know. I'm having a hard time separating like the nostalgic hope that it will work from the reality of the modern day. I kind of hope so. What I wonder about is how they're gonna adapt it to fit. Like I suppose I have a worry that they're gonna try and fold in a lot of like social media type stuff into it.
Interesting. That's
like
a very fair point.
Voting. Well, I don't know if you can do voting with anything. Voting for anything these days because all the scandals, do they? But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's probably got a chance, just because it's big and bombastic enough, and I suspect that people, our age, within our kind of age gap, from like 5 years younger than me to 5 years older than you, maybe even a bit more, will watch it just out of pure nostalgia and be like, I remember this. This is great. I remember. It's like I had a flashback when you talked about it, when we got done talking about it last night. I had a whole flashback to how I used to watch it, because obviously at the weekends I would go to my dad's house, and the two of the things that I remember us always watching, and he had. He was way too cool for Gladiators, but he enjoyed it because of me, and I think probably secretly enjoyed it. But I would go. It was when at the time he lived in a place called Waterorton to the north of Birmingham, in a little flat above a Lloyd's Chemist, and there was a chip shop across the street. So I'd go across the street and I'd get us stuff from the chip shop, come back, and we'd watch Gladiators. So it actually really kind of brought a very fond memory into my mind just talking about it. So I think that's I'm definitely not unique when it comes to that sort of thing. So I suspect that there's probably going to be a whole contingent of people who'll watch it just because of that. The question is, how long does that last?
At least 11 weeks, unless they pull it for some reason. But I suppose then it's, what do you do after that? What do you do from...
It's in the bag, apparently, it seems, because there was also a section on there saying that there were a couple of injuries. So they've and obviously if there's been trouble with the ticketing, which was all through Applause Store, apparently, and they pushed back. They said, it says on the website, we oversell because of no shows. So
we want it to be full, I suppose.
Yeah.
So fascinating. Just because of the way, especially post COVID, the way TV works, I would assume this was probably all in the bag by the spring.
I bet you're right.
And then maybe push a bit later, but they would have had it on the shelf a while and ready to go, and they've got the whole season edited and ready to go. So which means go on.
So the production section says that in July 2022, it was reported the BBC were in talks with Metro Golden Mare, who hold the rights to the original format, to relaunch the show on the BBC.
Oh, fascinating. Who's bought MGM since then?
Who has bought MGM since then? Disney?
Amazon.
Okay. It's one of the two.
It's one of the fair point.
So it's being produced by Hungry Bear Media and MGM Television. Who's Hungry Bear?
I don't know. They're going to be the UK end of it, I would think, then.
Yeah, British television production company founded in 2014 by Dan Baldwin and Juliet Dennison-Gay. No idea.
Do not know them, but okay.
They've also done... they do Michael McIntyre's Big Show, right. Bradley Walsh and Son, Breaking Dad, which makes sense now because Bradley Walsh and his son are going to be presenting it together. Although, weirdly enough, on the Wikipedia page, it says that they've been in negotiation with, I forget who it was, someone else, to host during the second season with Bradley Walsh. And it's like, are they already given up on the boy?
Maybe.
Yeah. The Wheel? What's The Wheel?
Oh, The Wheel is another Saturday evening BBC show. Michael McIntyre presents it. It's kind of like, do you remember when they used to do a shit game show around the lottery results?
Yeah.
Kind of one of those. So you have a bunch of celebrities sat in chairs. I think you have 3 contestants who are sunk in the ground, and one of them comes up at a time, like it randomly selects one of them, and they'll do questions around the wheel pointed at different celebrities. And then if they get a question wrong, they go back down, another one comes up. I wonder what happens below that set is what the only thing I always think about this.
Very high concept.
It is.
Did someone watch Wheel of Fortune and be like, let's do that, but with humans?
Yeah, the wheel. Let's do the actual wheel part of it. Forget the wall, forget everyone else. Let's put them in the wheel. Yeah, it all spins. The celebrities go around and they answer questions, and there's a bunch of like rubbish on top of it where some people have different specialisms and stuff. Like I watched one the other day and Giles Brandreth was on it. It's like that kind of level of celeb. It's really weird people.
Yeah, looking at the list of stuff that production company's done, it's all that kind of Saturday night type stuff. They've got Alan Carr stuff on there and all that sort
100% makes sense for the people to do that. I wonder then if this has got legs here, whether they try and renew the format internationally for different people now that MGM has got a bit of juice behind it again.
Maybe, yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, you got to if MGM's owned by Amazon, it's not like you got a problem with distribution anymore. You just put it all on Prime.
Put it all on Prime next to your Bond films and your whatever the hell else MGM have. Rocky. I'm trying to think what else they own. Do you want to try and watch some of it, and we'll come back and chat about it again?
I think we probably should. Just see what it looks like, and then see if any of the things that we've kind of semi-predicted here are accurate.
Yeah, I think this is a nice precursor to a future episode that may or may not happen. Somewhere as well, to finish on, I've got a stack of original Gladiator magazines.
Oh, have you really?
We can mine for some comedy as well.
Nice.
I found them sorting out the farm stuff, and I'm not going to say it's an entire run, but I bought that magazine for most of a year, I would think.
Nice. I know at one point I had a Gladiators annual, because I was very confused. Because obviously, 92, I was 8 when it started.
Oh, wow.
So I was quite confused because obviously the annual must have been printed sometime during the production run of the first series. But it had people in who really weren't very, like, I remember Flame was one of the Gladiators. She lasted like 3 episodes or something. And I was like, who is this? And Zodiac was in there, who I think came back a lot more, but was gone for a couple of years or something. So yeah, anyway, it was interesting.
Wow. Favorite Gladiator looking back?
At the time, it was Zodiac.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to remember the name, but yeah.
But also, I always had a little thing for Jet. As
everyone did. I mean, I was going to say I'm basic as fuck, and it was clearly Jet. So
yeah.
But I mean,
did you have a favorite male gladiator? Out of curiosity.
No, I mean, not really. I mean, not Wolf, because Wolf always struck me as like over the top. But he's probably the only one I remember, other than, like I said, Warrior earlier on and got the name right. No, like I in recent years, I'm surprised that Hunter seems to have made a bit of a comeback in terms of pop culture.
Yeah, he's one who I could see coming back almost.
Yeah, it seems to be a good egg and a
maybe
good,
not as a gladiator, but just appearing. And I remember when I did this. This were fun. This were.
He's been on in the
he's
last
like
year.
Bold now and shit, right?
He's completely bald, and he's been on The Last Leg a couple of times. I mean, I think week to week, actually, he was almost appearing as a random, like somewhere in the show, they'd sneak in Hunter from Gladiators.
Did they call him Hunter from Gladiators? I thought it was a good running joke.
Yes.
Marvelous. Okay.
I don't know if they ever used his real name.
I approve of that.
So,
okay.
I wonder if that shares a production link.
I wonder if it does. I remember really liking Saracen. I remember thinking he was cool. And funnily enough, Hunter, I had a bit of a Will Wheaton hatred of him for some reason, completely irrational and not based on anything. But yeah, I had distaste for him initially, which kind of faded over time, but I don't know why.
A story has just popped into my head, and I think his name was Rhino.
Rhino, there was definitely a gladiator called
Late
Rhino.
era,
really big fucker,
massive,
solid,
thick set shoulders, like 2 feet apart, whatever. He came into the cinema I was working in.
Oh, cool!
And a buzz went around. Everyone was like, "That's
fucking
Rhino!"
Yeah,
like it was one of the few celebrities that we ever had come in. Like him, Jordan came in
London.
Yeah, and the manager was very good friends with Claire from Steps, so Claire was in a lot. And we'd get a few. And Jimmy Carr came in when Jimmy Carr was no one.
Oh, interesting.
He'd played a gig the night before. I don't know whether it was the student union or whether it was a pub, but we'd been to it. And he came in to see a film the next day. And so we threw popcorn at the back of his head and hid in the screen we was in. Because he bizarrely came in to see a film and he was in, apologies to Jimmy Carr, he was in a screen on his own, but we could sneak in through the doors, through the back, in the hallways. And so we went in, we threw things at the back of his head to hid. And so he looked around and there was no one in the screen with him, but he'd just been hit by popcorn on him. Anyway, funny story. But yeah, we'd get like random people coming in because we're on the edge of London. So you get like people random. But Rhino, yeah, I remember the buzz that went around when Rhino came in, and I hadn't watched Gladiators in a long time at that point. And it was just kind of, I looked at him and went, yeah, he looks like a fucking gladiator. And that was about as much as I got out of it. So anyway,
Interesting. Okay,
we'll come back on this one with a giant stack of old magazines and some moaning about the new one, I suppose.
the Gladiators.
Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, da-da-da-da. I can't remember the things.
To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out. I don't know what that means, to play us out. What does that mean? To end the show?
Yeah.
All right, go.
In 5, 4, 3.
Can't hear that without going into boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. Do you have the power of the gladiators? Oh, Jarvis doesn't like my singing. Anyway,
Fucking thing sucks!
DOWZARD.